During this session, I wanted to discuss with you and provide you with a walkthrough on a couple of new features that we introduced. For example, the guardrails for Amazon Bedrock. But we won't be limited to that because I wanted to discuss things that goes beyond implementing a guardrail for being successful in your journey to implement responsible AI applications on AWS. And during this session, what you guys can expect is a couple of things. We are going to have a deep dive on challenges and tools for using generative AI responsibly. Then I'm going to walk you guys through the new feature that we introduced uh, during your last reInvent, which was Guardrails for Amazon Bedrock. This is still in preview, but you guys can benefit from that and you can give it a try yourself. Also, I wanted to do a deep dive on practices, best practice, which goes beyond guardrails. Because when we are talking about implementing generative AI responsibly, we need to consider other things that are that goes beyond guardrails. For example, we may want to explore best practice for prompt engineering, templatized prompting, as well as integrating with evaluators to make sure when we are implementing RAG, which is a mechanism which avoid hallucinations, we need to determine whether or not the output is something that we can do. And with this, I'm going to spend some time with explaining some of the Llama index evaluators for those of you that haven't played with that. And I wanted to spend some time with the constitutional AI and LangChain. I'm going to have to explain how to best implement this to tackle all the use cases. And last but not least, we're going to have like a Q&A. I'll share all the resources and next steps, right? So we all know that the world has been taken by storm since the introduction of generative AI, and we have seen many different use cases like text summarization, text generation, and many things that we can do with generative AI, large language models. But today, we are not here to talk about this, but instead, I wanted to talk more about how to find a balance between all the promises that generative AI brings to transform industries and enable new innovations. So with the risk and challenge that has been brought since the introduction of generative AI. For example, we have here things like hallucinations. Everyone is familiar with that. Toxicity, safety, bias, privacy protection, and things that we usually see. For example, one of the things that we know that large language models are not good at is to citing source, right? So while those large language models can produce text that appears to cite source, it's important to note that they cannot accurately cite source. This is because they don't have access to the internet and they don't have the ability to remember where their training data came from. And as a result, when we see they citing sources that seems plausible, but they are not entirely, sometimes the output is fabricated. So this is something that we gotta be very careful. I'm gonna provide you a couple of examples on how to mitigate this. One second topic that I'm going to explain and show you during the demos how to prevent this from happening is bias, right? So of course we can see that a large language model can exhibit bias in their responses because they and sometimes prejudiced content because they have been training against large data sets that may contain biased information. So, and we need to identify ways to tackle this to avoid this from happening. And again, one one additional thing is that comes a lot is about hallucinations, right? And we know that RAG is a powerful tool to avoid hallucinations. But even so, even with RAG, we may have hallucinations. And what are the techniques we may have in place with the pre-processing and post-processing of a prompt and the output to make sure we won't have hallucinations. And that's why we can use several different tools like evaluators with lemma index. We may use things like Amazon Comprehend, safety, new capability that has been introduced during reInvent that I'm going to explain and talk about. And last but not least, we have prompt hacking, right? So similarly to what we used to see when we were developing our applications back in a few years ago, decades ago, with SQL injection, we can definitely do something like jailbreaking, prompt injection, and things like that. And how we can tackle this, how we can avoid this from happening. And these are the kind of things that we're going to explore during the session. But now before we can cut to the chase and we can see the demos and the products, I wanted to talk about some of the dimensions of a responsible AI implementation, right? So we have these 6 pillars, starting with fairness, yeah, and this is where we consider how a system impacts different subpopulations of users. So, for example, by sex, by ethnicity, language, and so on and so forth. So we wanted to make sure that there are not harmful disparities in system performance and across subpopulations. Explainability. This is a mechanism whether the system offers a clear rationale for its decision. So in other words, sometimes customers want justification for an inference produced by the AI system, which is particularly important for those with compliance requirement. And I'll show you, for example, with constitutional AI and also with these evaluators, how we can provide this explainability. And also with the new feature which we had introduced with Amazon Bedrock, which allows us to evaluate the model as well, right? Robustness. This is really important, and I'm going to explain this during the RAG demo that I'm going to do with a lemma index. But basically, we need to understand, we need to make sure the answer produced is relevant to what what was asked, right? And if there is whether or not there is hallucinations and things like that. And I'm going to explain how we can best implement this. Privacy and security, governance, and transparency are also really important points. But now I wanted to move to the next topic and say, starting by saying that model providers offer some protections already, right? So for example, if you go to the Amazon Bedrock console and ask, who are best drivers, men or women, right? So the answer out of the box to avoid this, to answer these controversial questions, say, I'm an AI system, I'm not allowed to answer these sort of questions and things like that. And that happens because there is specialized training techniques with human feedback and multi-pillar testing strategy that we implement out of the box, and also all the large language model like Anthropic Claude or the Titan model, text to text or text to image, all of them have this in place already, right? But on top of that, it's really important to understand that when it comes to fairness, sensitivities, well, this goes beyond what can be implemented out of the box, right? Because the point is, sometimes it's so hard to build generative AI responsibly because it begins with the fact that models are broad and open-ended. So the generative AI refers to the fact that technology can produce open-ended content that varies with repeated tries. So let's look at one example here. For example, how do we go about making sure a large language model is fair? So you might even mean by what do we mean by that? So for example, in this slide deck, you see like race A, race B, female, males, right? But say we wanted to, we might ask that the large language model treat men and women equally. So, for instance, considering a prompt like Dr. Hansen studied the patient's chart carefully and blah, blah, blah. So in search of fairness, we might ask that in the completions generated by a large language model, Dr. Hansen be assigned male and female pronouns with roughly equal frequency, right? So, but how we go about other professions like nurses, firefighters, accountants, pilots, carpenters, attorneys, professors, and so on and so forth, so forth. So there are multiple different and on top of that, remember that this might be slightly different considering the culture, the country, the region where you are, and when it comes to sensitivity topics like um culture, sometimes one thing or one expression or one idiom that is offensive is considered to be offensive in a specific country is not totally true in a different country. So that's why it's really hard to have this. And with this in mind, in this slide, I the beauty of this slide that provides multiple ways, different ways for you to tackle. So at the bottom, you see training and tuning foundation models where we apply techniques like reinforcement learning, human feedback. We had red teaming, fair loss functions. You can fine tune your model. You can enhance the data set. But you also have guardrail models where you can, for example, implement topic and models and classifiers, which we are going to see the next few slides while experimenting with the guardrails for Bedrock. But also remember that it's really important to have other measures in place. For example, we need to make sure we have safer prompts and UX while using RAG, which is a powerful mechanism to provide more context and to avoid hallucinations. What are the techniques we can have in place to ensure the outcome is really meaningful, right? And sometimes we may want to to rewrite the response with self-critique. This is a technique used by the constitutional AI. So we provide a prompt, we evaluate the prompt, and we analyze whether or not against different policies, whether that prompt is offensive, has sexual content, or things like that. And based on that, we may rewrite the response for something that is more appropriate, right? So we have different measures, and we can combine all of them to make the most of to make a successful implementation of generative AI responsibly. But now I wanted to spend some time to walk you guys through the guardrails for Amazon Bedrock, which is still in preview. But basically, you have the ability to apply guardrails to any foundation model, including the ones that were fine-tuned. And also you can combine with agents for Amazon Bedrock. So basically you have the ability to define a couple of topics. So for both the input and output, right? And you can define and you can allow and disallow denied topics with short natural language descriptions. So it's really simple, really straightforward. And also on top of that, this is still in the works. This is a capability that is coming soon, where you're going to have the ability to redact sensitive PII information in foundation model responses. But let me explain to you what it looks like, right? So again, guardrails can be applied across foundation models, including Anthropic Claude, Llama 2, Cohere Command, AI 21, Amazon Titan Text, as well as fine-tuned models. And basically, customers can create multiple guardrails each one configured with a different combination of controls, right? So you may want to have denied topics and use guardrails across different application use case. And also you can combine this with agents for Amazon Bedrock, as I just said. One additional capability for the responsible AI policies is that you can have content filters. Basically, you can define if you whether or not your input and output, your prompt and your response includes content that has um, sexual content or profanity or harmful content. And if that is the case, uh, you can set up an answer for that particular case. And we also have word filter coming soon. So the first one, which is denied topics, basically is to avoid undesirable topics in your application. So basically it allows you to define a set of topics to avoid within the context of your application. So uh, this way, this guardrail detects and blocks user inputs in foundation model responses that fall into restricted topics. For example, in this case, as you guys are seeing, say you are creating a banking assistant and you wanted to design in such a way that avoid topics related to investment advice. So basically, you can provide with a couple of examples on whether or not should I invest in stocks. You'll get guaranteed returns from this investment and things like that. Questions that are tricky and you wanted to avoid when you are creating your, for example, your chatbot for your customers. So this is one thing that you can do. Really straightforward, really simple, and we're gonna see this during the demo. And when it comes to content filters, you have the ability to filter, as I said, both the input and output. So you have filter for prompts and filter for responses, and you have different levels of filter. So none, low, medium, and high for that particular topic, right? And you can create as many guardrails as you want and apply according to the application. You have these filters for hate content, insults, sexual content, and violence, right? And as I said again, we had two capabilities that are coming out soon: PII redaction and word filters. So basically, you can filter profane words, and with the PII redaction, you can detect and filter PII in user inputs. So in the meantime, while just for the record, if you wanted to implement this out of the box, we have this capability available as well through Amazon Comprehend, right? So you can easily implement that, and I'm going to show you during the demo how to do it and how to call the APIs properly. So now let's go straight to the point. So I wanted to do a demo of Guardrails for you to understand, right? So basically what I'm gonna do is that I'm going to get started by creating a guardrail. As you can see, I'm gonna click on the guardrail button and then give a name for this, which is a bank assistant guardrail. And basically you need to provide the description. This is a guardrail for online banking assistant. You have users with banking account related questions. Can provide tags, just really easy. Can provide a topic. So this is going to be an investment advice. So the definition for the topic is that we don't want it to allow questions on this particular topic. And for the third one, which is content filter, we're gonna enable both the filter for input and output, for hate, insults, and sexual content. We are defining the level. So we don't allow this sort of words for both input and output. Then the second is the blocked messaging. So the messaging for blocked prompts, as well as messaging for blocked responses. So basically, I'm saying, sorry, your query violates our usage policies, and I'm unable to answer your question for the blocked response. So as you guys are seeing, it's really easy, really straightforward. So this is the summary. I create a guardrail, and then the next step is to utilize the guardrail we just created. So we have similar, for those of you that have played with the agents, you gotta notice that we can create multiple versions, and we can experiment with a draft version, and then we can publish that. So basically now we need to select the model. You can pick up the model you want. Now with this example, we're going to use Titan text. And then we're going to ask the question, how can I apply for a credit card? So the answer, we had the model response and also the final response. And as you guys see, we can see the trace and the reason why. So for those categories, for denied topics and content filters, well, for this particular question, which is how can I apply for a credit card, this doesn't go against the guardrails that I put in place. So for both, they were successful. The test the test results were passed. But instead, if I ask a different question, so what are the steps to open and checking account? As you guys are going to realize, this is okay. As this won't have any issue either, right? This is okay. But instead, if I ask a different question, for example, how can I get guaranteed return if I invest in stocks? Remember, we don't want to provide our application to provide information on the stocks, on whether or not the returns are guaranteed. And we provide some samples to avoid this in our guardrail. And as you guys are going to realize, the actual model response is no one can guarantee, but the final response was according to the setup I did for the guardrails. So as you guys see, the denied topics was failure, right? And also, if I wanted to explore the content filters with insults, for example, I'm going to say, should invest in bonds and gold? If you cannot answer, you are stupid. So as you guys see, this goes against these denied topics, as well as has a confidence score of high confidence score, saying that this is an insult, right? So sorry, your query violates our usage policy. So there are two fails, and you can check the trace on the reason why we got this. And we can train against a different model the same way, and we can run the same query, and you're going to see that the test result is similar, right? So it goes against the guardrails we had in place. And I can create a new version, as I explained to you. And once the version is available, you can see the content filters, this for a prompt and for response. Both are enabled, they are on. And the next that I wanted to show you is how we can see what's happening behind the scenes. So we have the capability to enable CloudWatch logs with this. And you guys can see what is happening behind the scenes. So if I click on the CloudWatch logs and go to the log groups that I set up for these bank assistant logs, we're going to see that all the model invocations are record in the logs. And as you guys can see, this is the question. So how can I apply for a credit card? And I have the answer, And also you guys can see that the guardrails that we put together, they were used and they are embedded. They are provided out of the box. I didn't have to do anything. And I have all the tray, including the trays, and also with these logs, I can see what happened, and if one of the prompt has triggered one of these guardrails. So, for example, for this question, which was, you guys can see that all the content filter, both the content filter and also the denied topics, they passed, and guardrail did not intervene, right? But on the other side, for the second request, you're gonna realize the same question I asked. Should I invest in bonds and gold? If you cannot answer, and this is the answer. And also I can see, for example, the content filter for insults has failed. And that's it. Thanks once again, and hope to see you in the next session. Bye.